Hey YouTube, this is Mad Movie Mark with the Mad Movie Mark movie review. Thank you for joining me as I review the 1943 drama witch hunt Danish movie Day of Wrath.
Ja, jeg synes, det er skamløst.
Well, there's not going to be any scandals here. I'm just reviewing all the movies that have 100% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes. I'll give them all a score of 1 to 10. After I review all of them, I will rank them from worst to best. I started in the 1920 silent movie era, and now I'm at 1943 with Day of Wrath. So like I said, this is a Danish movie. It has a 100% fresh rating from the critics on Rotten Tomatoes and a 91% fresh rating from the audience, which I would say is above average. It stars Thorkild Roos as Reverend Absalon and Lisbeth Moven as Anne. It was directed by Carl Dreyer, and like I said, it is a Danish movie. This movie takes place during the witch trials and the witch hunts of the 1600s. This is set in 1623 in Denmark. So when this movie opens up, we are introduced to the character of Herlof's Marte. She is an older woman who we're in her house in her village. She is there with a friend of hers, and then we hear an angry mob coming through town. They are after a witch. They have decided that someone is a witch and they're going to catch her and burn at the stake. We then learn that this witch is Marte, so she ends up hiding in a kind of animal trough that she has, and she's able to elude this mob at first. We then are introduced to the characters of Reverend Absalon and Anne. Reverend Absalon is someone who is deeply involved with these witch hunts and these interrogations. So he is the final say of who is a witch and who is not a witch. So he interrogates people, he kind of gets to know who they are, and then he says, you're either a witch or you're not a witch. He is married to Anne, who is much, much younger than him. I would say he's probably in his mid-50s and she's probably in her mid-20s. This is a relationship that we kind of early on figure out that she is not really wanting to be in this relationship. Maybe she was forced into this relationship in some way. And then we learn that, yes, she was forced into the relationship. Her mom was accused of being a witch, and Reverend Absalon ended up pardoning her and kind of said, no, you're not a witch. And after that, he got with her daughter. We're then introduced to Reverend Absalon's mother, who does not approve of this relationship. She believes that he is much too old for his new wife. In fact, his new wife is about the same age as his son. We are then introduced to his son, who comes to town, meets his mom for the first time. They are about the same age, and he just says, like, I want to be the best son that I can to you. It doesn't really matter to me that we are the same age, but I am here to meet you and be a great son. Then Marte ends up coming to Anne's house. They apparently are friends, and she says, I need you to hide me, please. If they catch me, they're going to kill me.
Anne, du må hjælpe mig. Du må skjule mig. De brænder mig, hvis de får fat i mig.
She doesn't really, as far as I could tell, as far as I'm following the movie, she doesn't really ever say that she's a witch at this point, or that she's not a witch. She just asked that she be hidden. So Anne does hide her in her house, but then the angry mob comes to the house. They kind of have tracked Anne there. They know that she's there, and they ask Reverend Absalon if they can search his house. Now, he doesn't know that Anne is there, but he can kind of tell by the way his wife is acting that she is hiding something. So he says, yes, you may search my house to find this alleged witch. So they search the house and they find her.
Er der en anden opgang til loftet?
Ja, af den anden trappe.
Så sig til Hans og Henrik om at gå den vej op.
They then accuse her of being a witch, and she says that she's not so much afraid of heaven or hell, wherever she's going, but she's afraid of dying. She begs Reverend Absalon, please do for me what you did for Anne's mother. Please tell them that I'm not a witch, because I'm very afraid of dying. Now, she also, at this point, doesn't ever never says she's a witch or not. She just says, please tell them that I am not a witch because I don't want to die. He kind of says, like, what are you talking about? What do you mean what I did for Anne's mom? Anne's mom wasn't a witch. But Anne's mom apparently was someone who she was accused of being able to wish that someone was dead and then they would actually die. That will be important later on. But he says, no, I'm not going to help you. You have to tell us that you're a witch or that you're not a witch, but you have to say yes or no. But if you don't say yes, we're going to torture you until you do. So they end up torturing her. We don't know how many days or how many hours, but it does seem that she is very tired and that she has just, her body and her mentality is just, she's gone through too much. She can't do this anymore. So she eventually just says, yes, I'm a witch. Please stop torturing me. I'm a witch.
Hvorefter hun tilsagte at gå til bekendelse.
And then they try to get other names from her, but she doesn't give any more names. And eventually they do kind of burn her at the stake. But when right before they burn her at the stake, she says, I'm going to curse all of you here. And then she wants to talk to Reverend Absalon. And she says, tell them I'm not a witch, or I'm going to denounce Anne. I'm going to tell everyone that Anne's a witch, and I'm going to haunt you in your dreams, and you will never have a moment of peace. And he says, I'm not going to do it. I already told you I'm not going to denounce you. I'm not going to tell everyone that you're not a witch, because I believe that you are a witch. So they end up burning her at the stake.
Han vil gøre dine øjne seende og vende din sjæl fra synden.
Jeg udlægger Anne. Hør I! Jeg skal nok få ret på jer!
And then after that, that's kind of the first part of the movie. And then we kind of move to a second part of the movie where they don't really talk about witches so much. The second part of the movie is about Anne falling in love with Absalon's son, which makes perfect sense because they are about the same age. They seem to like the same things. They frolic in the grass a lot. They go on like a boat ride. It's kind of a slow burn of a relationship, but you know, the whole second half of the movie is basically them discovering their love and doing things together and being in love with each other.
Tårer, som jeg tør bort.
And then at the same time, it's Absalon kind of fighting with inner demons. Now, I don't know if they ever really come out and say this altogether, but I had a feeling that he was fighting with the fact that maybe Marte wasn't a witch, but I don't really know. I was kind of confused by this point a little bit, because it's either he's fighting with himself about that, or he's fighting with himself about saving Anne's mom when she actually was a witch, and he should have burned her at the stake too. Either way, he's fighting with some sort of demons here. I'm thinking maybe the second one is true, that he was fighting with the fact that Anne's mom was a witch, and instead of burning her, he let her live, and then he got with her daughter. I don't know, but he has this inner struggle with himself, and then one night he has someone that he knows is dying. This is one of the people that Marte cursed when she was on the stake. She's dying, he's dying, and he basically says, like, we're all gonna die or whatever because of Marte. She cursed us all. So then Absalon goes back to his house. There's like this really wild storm going on in the background where you just hear wind for like half an hour. So he goes back to his house and he's talking with Anne, and he says, like, I feel the grips of death coming over me. Woman, have you ever wished me dead? I think that someone has wished me dead. Could it have been you? And she says, why would I wish you me? Why would I wish you dead? You know, I'm just a girl in her 20s who was forced into this relationship that I never wanted. Why would I wish you dead? Eventually, she does come clean and she says, yes, I did wish you dead.
Det er sandt. Mine unge år har du taget. Glæden har du taget. Jeg har brændt efter en, jeg kunne elske.
You were not able to give me a child, which I really wanted. You're old and you're like too old for me. We can't kind of do the things that I enjoy because of your age. And you're kind of like, stuffy. You're not the young, vibrant person that I need. And then she also says that she is dating his son, Martin. And he says, Martin? You're dating Martin? And she says, yes. And then he dies. Actually, she says, yes, I've wished death upon you, and I'm with Martin now. And then he dies. And then after he dies, Martin has kind of been grappling with this idea that he is in a relationship with his father's wife, and he's kind of struggling with this idea. But then after his father dies, he really struggles with the idea that of what he did, and he asks, like, did you ever wish death upon my father? And he's just like kind of spiraling down a well of hurt and anger and frustration, and the kind of thing that people go through, the reflection that people go through when their parents have died. Only he was dating his mother, so it's a little bit different. At the end of the movie, they're kind of having the funeral for Absalon. They're in this building, and they're like looking over his coffin, and Absalon's mother comes up and she says, Anne's a witch. She wished death upon my son. And her mother was also someone who was able to wish death upon people and they would die. She's a witch. And then she says she's not a witch. And they say, well, if you're not a witch, go up to Absalon and tell them you're not a witch. But then Martin ends up going against his girlfriend, and he also believes that she's a witch. So at the end of the movie, Anne ends up kind of giving up. She's lost her husband, she's lost her boyfriend, she's lost like the love in her life, and she kind of gives up on life, and she says, I am a witch, I did wish death upon you, and you died. And that's the end of the movie. So she pretty much has sealed her fate. She will now be probably burned at the stake, more than likely. There's really no way out of it. And that's the entire movie. So what do I think of this movie? So I've been to Salem, and I've learned about the witch trials there and about just how unjust and unfair these witch trials were, that someone could just claim that they saw someone flying around in the sky and that someone was a witch, and then they would be prosecuted as a witch, and they would have to prove that this didn't happen. So the things that are going on here in this movie, where someone is just this old woman, we don't know why, is said to be a witch. The mob in the town kind of grab her and accuse her of being a witch, and then she has to say yes or no and probably provide some proof as to how she's not a witch. It's basically impossible. There's no way to do it. You can't prove that you're not a witch, because the things that people are accusing you of doing are not things that someone can actually do. So how can I prove that I didn't fly around on a broom when it's impossible to do that? Everyone believes it, so it's impossible. So this movie kind of, I believe, gets that straight. There were also no witches burned in America. They were all kind of overseas, so they got that part right as well. The acting, I would say, is pretty good in this movie. I really thought that there were a few that stood out. I felt that Herlof's Marte, the woman who was first burned at the stake, I thought she did a really good job. You really feel the emotion in her. You really feel that she is terrified of death. You feel like she is terrified about what's going on. Maybe she doesn't understand it as much. At the end, she kind of comes to grips with what's going to happen to her, but you still feel that she is terrified of what's happening, because I don't think she ever outright comes out and says she's not a witch, but to have this thrown upon you out of nowhere, just because maybe someone didn't like you, or maybe someone had a disagreement with you, and they just say that you're a witch, it's kind of a feeling of defeat. Like, there's really nothing I can do about this here, so I am just going to be accused unjustly and probably going to die. And it's harrowing. It's really tough to watch because you really feel what she's going through. You really feel her, that she's terrified and that she's going through this terrible situation. And I thought she did a really good job of it. There are also times where I felt Lisbeth Moven, who plays Anne, I thought she was good at times. She is kind of stiff at certain points, and you don't really kind of see that emotion from her. But maybe it's because her role in the movie is supposed to be a wife who kind of, back then, a young wife who does what she says. She doesn't speak up a lot. She just kind of holds her, keeps to herself, always has her head down. And in that manner, she does a good job of it. I mean, that's probably what it was like back then. I will say that for me, Reverend Absalon is a little bit too rigid in this movie. There's never a lot of, I never see a lot of emotion coming out of him for anything. He just kind of has the same demeanor throughout the entire movie, which is just a rigid, like stoic kind of gentle kind of man. It would have been nice to see a little bit more from him than he gave. And the first half of this movie I really thought was really good. I thought it was suspenseful, where you're not really sure if she's actually going to die at the stake or not. Is he going to save her towards the end? Is there something that's going to happen? And then when she finally does, I feel like that's kind of the end of the suspense for me. And the rest of the movie is really just a long, drawn out, just really hard to watch. This is just my opinion. Now, this movie has 91% from the audience, so clearly my opinion is not reflective of what a lot of people think about this movie, but there's a lot of scenes at the end where it's just Martin and Anne kind of frolicking, enjoying each other, like dating each other, trying to keep this relationship a secret. I felt like it's really, really drawn out. I don't know why they had to spend so much time on their relationship. It's just, for me, to be honest, it's a lot of wasted time. I didn't think that it was necessary at all. And then kind of at the end of the movie, where they finally get to talking about witches and witchcraft and accusing witches again, I thought that was handled pretty well. Towards the end, where Absalon dies after she says that she wished him dead, I'm assuming that that's just a heart attack, because maybe he really, I mean, obviously he believes all this witch stuff, and maybe he just felt like that was going to kill him at the end. I don't think that they're trying to give any justification to the fact that maybe she is a witch, or maybe her family from long ago was a witch. I can't believe that that's true, that that's why he died, because she's a witch. I really think it was just the shock of what happened. He got shocked and he died because he thought that she was a witch and that this was going to kill him. And at the end of the movie, where Martin ends up believing that she's a witch and she lost everything, it's kind of a really tragically sad ending, because she was like basically forced into this marriage with a much younger man whom we can see that she didn't want to marry this guy, and then she finally finds the love of her life, the guy that she really wants to be with, and it's just a terrible coincidence that it is her husband's son. And then at the end of the movie, when maybe she has this chance to kind of break away from all this and maybe try to live a happy life, she ends up being accused of being a witch. So was the movie all along telling us that this is where it was going to end up? I don't think so. I didn't think at the end that she would be accused of being a witch. I just thought that, they would have the funeral and that would be done with it. But so the ending is kind of a little, I don't know. I wasn't satisfied at all by the ending, but I guess you don't necessarily have to be satisfied by the end of the movie. But I just felt like there was nothing there for me. That it was just you're like, okay, sure. So now this woman who's had a horrible life her entire life is gonna die. So okay, well, great. Thanks a lot. And I mean, I guess it speaks to the realism of what was happening back then. But it's still, I don't know, for Hollywood, for the movie, it could have ended a little bit better. I just felt like it didn't really give us anything at the end. There was no payoff at the end. So that's my review of Day of Wrath, 1943. I am going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. The 7.5 basically is, I would probably give the first half of the movie right before right before Marte dies, that would probably get like an 8, 8.5. And then I would, like, the rest of the movie kind of dragged for me and was just really slow. It was paced very slowly. And this is one of those movies where obviously, like, if it had a 75% fresh rating from the audience, I would say, okay, I'm definitely right about this. But maybe this is just one of those movies that I just don't get. It's not my kind of movie. I don't find it entertaining. It's not a movie I would ever go back to and rewatch. And that's like something that I take into account when I watch these movies. Is it something that I would want to rewatch? Is it something that at the end I thought, wow, I'm really glad that I watched that movie, or it was so impactful that I said, wow, like this movie is so impactful and so important. I'm really happy that I stuck with it. And the answer to all of those is really no, not at all. So for me, it's a 7.5. Thank you. I hope you have a great day.